Welcome everyone back to the North Texas Beltline. Hope you guys are having a good day so far. Wanted to take you on a tour today of the layout. First up, we're starting over here in Mineola. This is the east side of the layout. As you can see, we move here into the yard. Just want to talk to you about everything as we pass through here. Our yard here in Mineola consists of 4 tracks. And in those 4 tracks, we serve several different trains. We have an interchange train, we have a manifest train that runs all the way across the layout, and then we have a local that originates here in Mineola. So there's quite a bit of action on this layout. On this yard. This is the only yard that doesn't actually have a local yard crew, and so any train that comes into this yard has to work the yard by itself. But you can see there already is a little bit of cars here in the yard, but today it doesn't look like it's too busy. As around the curve here, we're heading westbound, and we've got an underpass here. This is basically simulating the Highway 80 underpass, but it's a much bigger highway in the real world. Next up, as you come around the corner, this is the town of Alba. There's not any work to be done here in Alba. This is just a siding, but this is the only place between Mineola and Emory that the dispatcher can hold a train if either the yard is busy or if the local in Emory is tying up the main. This is one of the favorite areas for people who like to rail fan on the layout due to its pretty farm settings and nice picturesque views for crossings and whatnot. This was also one of the first areas of the layout that was built and scenic when it was released to the public, so a lot of people have enjoyed this scene for many months at this point. One thing we did on the layout, we programmed all the highway crossings with TRC crossings, and they are active. Since this train is running a little fast, they're not ever going to be able to get down in time, but if you're running at scale speed, the crossing gates will be able to get down in time before you round the corner and get into the crossing. Next up here, we're coming up on the town of Emory. If you've seen our other video, our first video actually, on the Emory turn, we worked here in this town. So Emory is a very small town. Of course, in the real life, it no longer has any rail service, but in our alternate reality, Emory has a local that works the industries here. There are 5 industries and then heads to Mineola and then returns, hence why it's called the Emory turn. On the right, we have our little lumber yard. We've got a feed mill on the right now, and then we have a warehouse and a machine shop up here on the right, a furniture plant and a machine shop. On the left is what's called East Greenville. This is just from the city of Greenville on the layout. We broke it up into 2 sections, east and west. That's just because of the large amount of industries that are being served. And then on the far left, you see a little 3-track yard over there. That is the Santa Fe Interchange staging yard. And from there, we run trains to different points on the layout, modeling the Santa Fe line that runs south to Dallas from Greenville. All right, here we're rounding the curve. Now we're getting into West Greenville. On the left here, you can see there are several industries in West Greenville. Running the job that serves West Greenville is actually the most difficult job on the entire layout. It's the only local from Kingston Yard that gets blocked. The order that you put the cars in on this train matters. Otherwise, you'd spend all your time in a really tight spot shuffling, and you wouldn't really be able to do it. Just on the left here, we've got one of our scrap yards. It's one of my favorite scenes. And then here we are, coming up next, we're going to cross over to Trinity. When I was releasing the early models of this route, this field right here on the right, I tried to put different crops in there, but I wasn't able to get them to work. And so I ended up having to just go back to a default crop texture. But I've heard a lot of feedback that this scene here crossing the river is actually really nice and pleasant. As around the corner, we're coming into the town of Kingston. One special thing about Kingston, that is where Audie Murphy, the war hero, was born. There's not much else about Kingston that I know or that I think is very important. But in our world, Kingston is the most important part on the layout. It's full of a yard here. This is our divisional yard. So on the left, you have Kingston Yard. It's got 7 tracks. And then on the right, we have the town of Paris, Texas. And this is the far northern end of our layout. So we have trains that run from McKinney all the way to Paris. We have trains that run from Mineola all the way to Paris. And then, of course, any train that goes by Kingston is going to be worked in the Kingston Yard. Kingston Yard also has these 8 tracks here for classification. Whenever you operate the layout, you don't have to use those, but they are fun to be able to work with if you want to. Coming up on the right, or actually passing on the right, is the staging yard in Paris, since that's the northern terminus. And then now on the left here is where we hold engines for the Kingston yard. Make sure to follow our channel, to subscribe, and also hit that like button if you like what you've seen so far. And don't forget that if you want to get this railroad off the download station, we'll have the link or the KUID in the description. This is one of my favorite scenes here, coming through the farmland between Kingston and Farmersville. And remember that the towns are real places, but of course the rail service is not realistic. Farmersville, though, does have a KCS line that runs from Dallas to Greenville, and we have that over there on the left. On the right, we're still staying on the NTB, but here we are in Farmersville. There's a lot of activity going on here. There's 3 industries in Farmersville served by a local from McKinney. And then here in just a second on the far right, you're going to see the largest industry on the layout. This is the ethanol plant. The ethanol plant gets its own local directly from Kingston. There's like 9 tracks, I think, here for people in spot cars. Make sure that you stay tuned. Speaking of Farmersville, we have a video coming out soon about the operations of the ethanol plant and the local in Farmersville. So there are plenty more videos coming out involving operations. Plus, we're going to be making some build videos as we build this model layout in real full scale, the actual what would be the North Texas Beltline if it were a real railroad. As we're around the corner here, we're coming into the town of Princeton. Princeton also no longer has rail service. It had rail service until about 49 or so. But there are 3 industries here in Princeton. All of these are fictional. You've got a general goods industry on the right. You have a very small food plant and cold storage on the right coming up now. And then, of course, here's an abandoned industry, no longer gets rail service. I like this scene just because it's got some downtown running. It's very tight fitting. And then also coming up here on the right, you have a dry goods service. Usually gets covered hopper service and things like that. As we continue our move westbound, the only thing left for us to do is get to McKinney. McKinney does have rail service from the DG&O going up to Sherman. In our case, though, we actually just use a DG&O as an interchange, but you're going to see McKinney Yard coming up here in just a second. Before we get there, one last thing I'd like to say, we do have a Patreon page we're getting set up. Stay tuned for that link. We'll make sure to give it to you once it's available. And if you'd like to join our Discord for help with our operations or just to be a part of our community, we'll have that link in the description as well. One last thing about McKinney Yard before we get back to the west end of the layout and the end of our tour. McKinney Yard has 5 tracks. It serves an interchange train, a local train, and then a turn train that goes between Farmersville and Princeton. So a lot of action here in McKinney Yard. As such, though, it does have its own full-time yard service crew, which is a lot of fun if you're running multiple players sessions. And before I go, just want to say thank you for tuning in today. We're at the west end, so this is going to be the end of our tour. Once again, please make sure if you like what you've seen to hit that like button. Don't forget to follow the channel, hit that subscribe button, and click the bell to be notified of future videos. We have plenty more on the way. Thanks again for joining us, and here we go at the roundabout, so we will catch you guys next time. Take care. Have a good day. Bye.